The Kaioken is one of the most iconic techniques seen in Dragon Ball. It allows Goku to amplify his strength however he chooses at the cost of his own body. If he pushes the technique too far, his body might not be able to handle it, and it could do more harm than good. What makes the Kaioken so interesting is that it requires a level of strategy behind its usage, and the user has to know their own limitations in order to properly use it. We've seen Goku use it many times throughout the series, and as he's gotten stronger, he's been able to use bigger multipliers to increase his strength and speed to overcome his opponents. But how many different multipliers has he used? How far has he pushed the Kaioken? Today, I'm going to cover every single multiplier for the Kaioken technique, so sit back, hit that thumbs up button, and enjoy the video. Kaioken times 2. The first time that we see the Kaioken is in chapter 226 of the original Dragon Ball manga, appropriately titled The Mystery of the Kaioken. Thanks to his training with King Kai, Goku easily made a fool of Nappa, the same guy who killed off most of Earth's strongest defenders, showcasing how much stronger he had gotten in the afterlife. But if Goku was so much more advanced than Nappa in his base form, why would he need to use the Kaioken? Well, it didn't take long for Nappa to get tired of Goku's antics, so he decided to turn his attention away from their fight and back towards Gohan and Krillin. Nappa started speeding off towards the two of them, intending to take them out with one final attack, and Goku instantly chased after him. Unfortunately, his normal speed wouldn't have been enough to overtake Nappa, so he was forced to use the Kaioken, which not only doubles his strength, but doubles his speed as well, allowing him to catch up to the Saiyan and break his back with a single blow. A few chapters later, we see Goku use the Kaioken in proper combat during his fight against Vegeta, several times actually. The first time he's able to land a few good hits on Vegeta, but it doesn't take long for him to get outclassed, since at this point in time, Vegeta is just way too strong even for a simple ×2 Kaioken. And now that I mention it, up until now we've only ever heard Goku say Kaioken when using the technique. He's never said a number to go alongside it like what we see in the future. It's not until later in this fight where Goku says Kaioken ×2 in order to dodge an energy blast, and I've seen a lot of fans get confused by this. If Goku had to emphasize the ×2 multiplier this time, does that mean that the previous Kaiokens didn't double his strength? I've seen people debate whether the regular Kaioken is separate from the ×2 Kaioken, with some believing that it's only a 1.5 times multiplier, when in actuality, they're the same thing. Whether Goku says Kaioken ×2 or if he simplifies it to just Kaioken, they both double his strength and speed. It doesn't get any weaker than a double multiplication. Personally, I think the only reason why Goku started saying numbers here was so that the readers could get hyped up for whenever he went beyond the ×2 multiplier, which, speaking of, Kaioken ×3. In order to have a fighting chance against Vegeta, Goku had to push his limits higher than he's ever gone before. When learning the Kaioken from King Kai, Goku was warned to never push the technique higher than a ×2 multiplier because if his body wasn't properly trained to control the surging power in his body, the strain would be too great and it could kill him. But since Goku is Goku, he's always taking risks and deciding to push the Kaioken into a ×3 multiplier, which helped him turn the tables against Vegeta and overpower him. Instantly, Goku started feeling the ramifications of pushing the Kaioken to ×3 because after knocking Vegeta around, Goku started to feel intense pain throughout his body. He was alive and able to control the technique, but only for that quick little burst, so he had to be careful. But it didn't take long for him to push the Kaioken back into ×3 because immediately after, Vegeta gets enraged that he was tossed around by such a weakling that he attempts to blow up the planet with his Gallic Gun. The iconic Kamehameha vs Gallic Gun beam struggle starts off with Goku activating Kaioken ×3 and then firing a Kamehameha on top of it. The two Saiyans struggle back and forth trying to overpower one another, but they're stuck at a stalemate. Goku realizes that there's only one way for him to win this beam clash, and in order to save the planet, he has to risk it by using Kaioken ×4. Pushing himself even further beyond the ×3 multiplier, Goku bumped the Kaioken up to a ×4, which greatly boosted the power of his Kamehameha second, but Kaioken ×4 proved to be too much for Goku's body, and once the beam clash was over, he was frozen in place feeling nothing but sharp pain. Yajirobe even ran up to Goku and gave him a simple pat on the back, but that was enough to hurt him and cause him to scream in pain. And for the time being, this was Goku's limit. He managed to survive the 4 times multiplier, but because of the toll it had on his body, we wouldn't see him push the Kaioken to these lengths for quite some time. However, before moving on, it's important to note that after his battle with Vegeta, Goku goes back to simply saying Kaioken whenever he uses the technique. He rarely emphasizes which multiplier he's using, and so it's up to the reader to determine through context clues which one he's using. Like when he first encounters Captain Ginyu, Goku only uses a simple ×2 multiplier to increase his strength from roughly 85,000 or 90,000 to about 180,000. This increase in power is enough to shock Ginyu, with Goku implying that he could be much stronger when he uses the Kaioken's higher multipliers in quick bursts. But keep in mind, by the time he arrives on Namek, Goku has already undergone an intense 100 times gravity training session, so even though he's only using a ×2 multiplier to show off, it's implied that he could casually use the ×3 and ×4 multipliers at this point in time. Kaioken ×5. Now, let's take a little side trip because the Kaioken ×5 is something that Goku could easily pull off by the time he encounters Frieza, but we don't see him do it. Thanks to the intense training and Zenkai boost that he received prior to their fight, Goku could no doubt use a multiplier like ×5, ×6, ×7, ×8, and even ×9, but he never does, at least not in the original manga. However, in Dragon Ball Z Budokai, one of Goku's quote-unquote transformations is the King Kai Fist ×5. King Kai Fist, for those that don't know, is just a direct English translation of Kaioken. There's nothing much to say about this multiplier other than the fact that we've only seen it in the original Budokai alongside ×2 and ×10. Speaking of which, Kaioken ×10. Back to the original manga, Goku once agrees into using 50% of his maximum power, so in order to even have a fighting chance, Goku activates the Kaioken without uttering a single word. Fortunately, King Kai and the rest of the Z-Fighters are commentating on the fight from the afterlife, and through their dialogue, we get an official confirmation that Goku's body can handle a 10 times multiplier, but much to their surprise, King Kai says that he's already been using it. Even with Kaioken ×10, Goku still doesn't stand a chance against Frieza, and I think Akira Toriyama does a clever job at showcasing how big the power gap is between these two fighters. Up until now, we've seen how insanely powerful Goku can get when using the Kaioken's multipliers, and through characters like Ginyu giving us power levels to go off of, we know how big those numbers can grow when multiplied. Now, all of a sudden, Goku is using a 10 times multiplier, which is over double of the last multiplier that we've seen him use, so we know that his power is through the roof at this point. But even Kaioken ×10 isn't enough to match Frieza. It's not enough to even match half of his power, and that's terrifying. The reader, just like Goku, is backed up into a corner by Toriyama's writing, and now that we know that Frieza is only using half his power, it's a really tense moment when Goku puts everything into his next attack. Kaioken ×20. Doubling the Kaioken ×10 to a ×20, skipping everything in between, Goku hopes that Frieza is only bluffing about using half his power, so he puts everything he's got into one final flurry of attacks, followed up by the most powerful Kamehameha he's ever fired at this point in the series. Pushing the Kaioken to ×20, Goku and the reader are hoping that it's enough to finish the job, only to be caught off guard when Frieza tanks the attack, angered and threatened by Goku's increase in power. For what could possibly be the first time in his life, Frieza felt pain. This was the first time that he had fought someone that could actually be a threat to him, so he wasn't going to let it slide. And as we all know, their fight continued and created one of the most iconic moments in anime history, with Goku transforming into a Super Saiyan, sealing Frieza's fate. With the reveal of Super Saiyan, its incredible 50 times multiplier, and the lack of stress on his body, Goku no longer had a need for the Kaioken technique. And with the series taking a sudden interest in the Super Saiyan craze, the Kaioken ×20 would be the last time we see Goku use the Kaioken in the original manga. It would make a few appearances here and there in movies and in filler, but we wouldn't see it officially come back for several decades. For now though, let's talk about a few of those non-canon instances. Kaioken ×100. Throughout the Dragon Ball Z movies, we've seen Goku bring back some of the more common Kaioken multipliers such as ×2, ×3, and ×4. He even used the Kaioken in his fight against Turles, which can either be seen as a Kaioken ×10 in the original Japanese version, or a Kaioken ×20 if you watch the Funimation English dub. But none of the movie Kaiokens have been talked about as much as the one used in the Lord Slug movie. During his last stand against the Super Namekian, Goku pushed the Kaioken to an insane 100 times multiplier, the absolute highest number we've ever seen him use. Of course, he's used stronger variations of the Kaioken that I'll talk about in a bit, but Kaioken ×100 is the highest numerical multiplier that he's ever used. However, there is room for an argument on whether or not it actually is a 100 times multiplier, since in every version of the movie, Goku only says Kaioken and no number alongside it. It's not mentioned in the Daizenshu, it's not mentioned anywhere aside from an image present in Weekly Shonen Jump, 1991, issue number 12. The folks over at Kanzenshu have done an excellent deep dive into the rumor behind Kaioken times 100, and their info helped me fill out this portion of the video, so if you want to learn more about it for yourself, I'll leave a link to it down in the description. Go show them your support. Super Kaioken. My personal favorite version of the Kaioken has to be the Super Kaioken that Goku used against Pikkon in the Otherworld tournament. Making its only appearance in episode 199 of Dragon Ball Z, the Super Kaioken is pretty straightforward. It's a combination of the Super Saiyan form and the Kaioken technique. While in his Super Saiyan form, Goku quickly tapped into the Kaioken to deliver a powerful punch that sent Pikkon flying into a nearby moon. It's not used for very long and is quite possibly the shortest Kaioken ever seen, but it's such a beloved variation of the technique because of its concept. In theory, Super Kaioken shouldn't even be possible because of the intense emotional turmoil it would have on the user's body. Combining the already unstable Kaioken with the intensity of the Super Saiyan, that's like instant suicide if Goku were to use it while living, which explains why he only used it while he was dead. And even then, it's likely that it was just a simple ×2 multiplier, which added on top of Super Saiyan's ×50, that would have made Goku as strong as a Super Saiyan 2 for a split second. Makes you wonder what would happen if Goku used the Kaioken with a stronger Super Saiyan form. Oh wait, Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken. In Dragon Ball Super, Goku brought back the Kaioken technique for the first time since his fight against Frieza. Taking advantage of Super Saiyan Blue's calm ki control, Goku was able to balance the Kaioken technique on top of it, which would be impossible with other Super Saiyan forms as mentioned previously. Unlike other Super Saiyan forms, SSJ Blue requires the user to have a calm mind and perfect ki control, which complements the intensity of the Kaioken nicely. Originally, Goku was saving this as a technique he would use against Beerus, but he decided to take a risk during the Tournament of Destroyers and use it against Hit for the very first time. At first, Goku was just testing Blue Kaioken to see if his body could handle it, so it was likely just a 2× multiplier, but once he discovered that it was a possibility, he decided to take the technique a step further. Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken ×10. After discovering that he could successfully pull off the combination of Kaioken with the blue form, Goku was able to push Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken to a 10× multiplier to overpower and negate Hit's time skip abilities. Unlike the ×2 multiplier where Goku maintained his regular blue appearance with an additional red aura on top of his blue aura, Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken ×10 completely engulfs the user in a crimson color, making their entire body a dark red, just like how Kaioken used to look back in Dragon Ball Z. With how highly regarded Goku's fight against Hit is, I don't think it's a stretch to say that the ×10 multiplier is the most iconic variation of SSJ Blue Kaioken. Goku's onslaught of attacks against Hit is perhaps one of the most iconic moments in the Dragon Ball Super anime, and him being able to push back against Hit's time skip is one of those moments that truly goes to show how intelligent of a fighter Goku can be. But like always, Goku finds a way to keep surpassing his limits. Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken ×20. By the time of the Tournament of Power, Goku was able to casually use Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken ×10, and we see him use it several times after his fight with Hit, and up until his first encounter with Jiren. When Goku takes on Jiren in the tournament, he is easily outmatched by the Pride Trooper and nearly knocked off the stage, but by this point, Goku has gotten much stronger since his fight with Hit, and his body has adapted to handle much more stress, so he takes Kaioken Blue a bit further, tapping into ×20. It's such a blink and you'll miss it kind of moment that most fans probably don't even remember it existing, since Goku first used it in a quick burst, but it's regarded as the strongest official version of Kaioken that we've seen thus far. At one point in the tournament, SSJ Blue Kaioken ×20 allowed Goku to fight on par with Vegeta's new Super Saiyan Blue evolution form, signifying that the two of them might be pretty close in strength. But even with the two Saiyans fighting at their strongest, Jiren was able to outmatch them, and eventually, Goku had to tap into Ultra Instinct to even hold a candle to him. Just like the situation with Frieza where Goku tapped into Super Saiyan and no longer needed Kaioken, Goku tapped into Ultra Instinct and no longer had a need for Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken. He might still use it from time to time as the series progresses, but Dragon Ball Super is now heading in a direction where Ultra forms are becoming the new normal, just like how everyone was getting into Super Saiyan back in the day. With things like Ultra Instinct, Ultra Ego, Orange Piccolo, and Gohan Beast, Dragon Ball Super is once again moving away from things like the Kaioken, but I can only imagine that history might repeat itself, and one day we'll see the Kaioken make a triumphant return where it's stacked on top of something new. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what that might be. And with that being said, I have now talked about every Kaioken multiplier that we've seen thus far. Of course, we have seen different versions of the Kaioken in video games and in other material like Dragon Ball Heroes, but it's likely that those are all pretty simple multipliers. Kaioken times 2 seems to be the most common variation, so I can only assume that things like Super Saiyan 4 Kaioken use a times 2 multiplier similar to Super Kaioken. Regardless though, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. If you think there's anything that I might have missed that you'd like to talk about, leave a comment down below and let's have a discussion. If you enjoyed today's video and want to see more Dragon Ball content like this, please support the video by giving it a like, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on all my content. I'm Innovative J-Dog, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. I will be seeing all of you Dragon Ball fans later. See ya!